Hi, hello everyone. Welcome again to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to cover Azure Dashboards. Though I have covered some of the metrics in past as well as part of Azure DevOps series, and I will give the link of that those videos in the description. But this is going to be kind of a short and a new series on Azure dashboards. And the reason I cannot cover everything in one single video is obviously because of the length of the video, and also I need to prepare some data because I want to cover a kind of like some generic metrics which could be useful for a Scrum Master, for Agile Management as well, for a team as well, right? So metrics are always based on data, so I need to kind of like prepare data. So in today's video, I'm going to share like some very useful information that can be covered in our dashboards, when we are talking about how we can manage a Agile project. So let us start. So basically what I have done is I have created a Azure Dashboards project in Azure DevOps Labs, the sandbox, which is freely available. So apart from that, what I have done is if I show you guys the work items. So these are the work items that I have created. So if I select the epics, so there are some set of like epics here, and within the epics, I have the set of features. Then there are some set of like user stories, and also there are some bugs and tasks as well. So this is basically to show like what all work items I have created. So we have epics, and within epics we have features, and within features we have user stories, and then user stories consist of tasks, and I have also mentioned like couple of bugs as well. And if I show you guys the sprints, so I can select the planning view from here. So these are the sprints as of now. I mean, I will be starting a sprint from 25th. So this is like a sprint 1, and then we have sprint 2, 3, right? So this sprint has not yet been started. And if I show you the Azure Dashboards Teams backlog, so these are the set of user stories uh, in our backlog. So the whole idea is, let's say for this particular team, whatever work items they have, I mean, I have shown you guys, their backlog or their product backlog consists of set of epics, set of features, and set of user stories, and those user stories have some defined tasks, and there are some bugs as well. And plus, they are going to start their sprint from 25th of September. So let's say they want to cover like some sort of like basic information in their dashboard. So how we can, what kind of metrics or what kind of information this particular team can convey in their dashboard, or maybe like if I am the Scrum Master or I need to convey some information or need to manage some information for the team, what all I can, mention in the dashboard. So the very first thing we will do is if I click on the dashboards, so this is kind of an existing one. We'll try to create a new dashboard. So what I will do is uh, Azure. Since this is for our channel members, so I'm just calling it Azure Channel Dashboard, and this is our team dashboard. So I'm going to say create. Okay, and I can simply bookmark it so that next time when I come here, I can see this information is there, right? So this is the team's dashboard, and right now there are no widgets. So the very first thing is we will try to kind of like add some very basic widgets which convey some sort of like information which is very handy. Like, I mean, if we are not using Agile 2, we might have to kind of like keep some of the team information, like what kind of a story scale they are using, what is their definition of done, maybe in the SharePoint, maybe if they are using Confluence. But when it comes to the Azure, I think we can make it as a centric place. There is no need to kind of like, maintain other things as well. I'm not saying like, we should not use SharePoint along with the Azure DevOps, but I mean, the necessary or the minimal documentation which is required, I think we can use Azure Dashboard for the same purpose to convey all the information which is necessary for our team in a single place. So what I will do here is, let's say we want to cover the very first thing, very first information, which is the sprint information. So basically, sprint overview. So if I add this one and I say done editing, so basically what this widget does is, I mean, whoever is looking and coming to our dashboard, they will get an idea that, okay, this particular team's sprint is starting from 25th, and what is the duration of the sprint, and right now, because the sprint has not started, the team hasn't done the planning. So, the basic information, the very high level information about the team's sprint that can be, covered using this particular widget. Okay, and this also can be configured. If I click on configure, so we can show this information like how many work items we have placed in this sprint, like how many work items are there in the sprint backlog, and we can also show this like the total amount of work in the story points as well. But since like the sprint has not been started, so this is kind of a very basic information it is showing. So another widget that we can do is I can click on the add and I can say markdown, and if I click on done editing, so let's say I want to convey what is the definition of done which our team has discussed, so that if any new member is joining, they can always go to the dashboard and they can see, okay, this is the definition of done for the team. So since I have already mentioned here, so I'm just going to copy it from here. This is the definition of done, and if I click on configure, okay, so this particular widget markdown, it uses the syntax, and you can always navigate like what all it provides in terms of features, the different syntax, how we can make it bold, italic, anything like it shows here. If we want to make anything as a bold, we have to mention it in the double star format. So since I have already copied it, and I'm going to just paste it, and if I click on, and here I can increase or decrease the height and width of this particular rectangular box. So I'm just going to keep it as a default one. And this is kind of a sample definition of done. Please, uh, this is kind of a sample only. I'm not saying like this is kind of a, a standard definition or done for all the agile teams. I mean, the DoD depends upon, what kind of work that particular team is performing and what exactly they have decided, right? So the whole idea about, showing this information in the dashboard is so that, we keep some very basic and necessary information which is relevant for our agile team in a centric place. So this is our definition of done. So what we have done so far in our dashboard is we have added a sprint information, and we have also added a markdown, which is basically the definition of done. Again, what we will do is we will also add another markdown for the story points scale. Okay, so I'm saying done editing, and if I have to move it, I just want to place it next to the definition of done. So I have just dragged it and placed it there, and then I'm saying done editing. Now what I have to do is, again, I have a story points scale which is mentioned here. So I'm just copying from the Excel, and if I click on the configure, so again, I'm just replacing it. And this is a syntax like to organize the information in a tabular format, and this can be utilized, and this is available in the syntax which is provided in the Microsoft Azure documentation site. So if we click on this link, it provides the necessary information like what kind of there are ways or different format which can be used to convey the information. So let's try to kind of like make height as a 2 so that we get this whole table. And if I save it, so this is our story points scale. So these are the three widgets we have added so far, where we have the Azure Dashboards, which conveys the sprint information at a very high level, the sprint date and the total days and the items which we can show in the count and the capacity. And then we have markdown in terms of like what is the definition of the done of the team, and then the story points scale. Again, the DoD and story points scale, these are the sample ones only. I'm not saying like these are the standards that every team has to use. Same goes with the story points as well. So this is just kind of a very simple information that this particular team is using, like what is their story points, like it is in the Fibonacci series, like we have 1, 2, and then we have 3, 5, and then 5 and 3 becomes plus 8. And then this is the t-shirt sizing. And then what this team has done, they have kind of like, because they are pretty new, they have also mapped it like for them extra small is something like 1 day, small is like 1 or 2 days, and then medium is like between 2 to 3 days, large for them is like 1 week, which is mapped to the 5 story points. And since this team is doing a 2 weeks of a sprint, so it does not make sense to kind of like use a 13 story points. So whenever this particular team says okay, they have a user story which is of 13 story points, that's a kind of indication that they will have to split that particular user story. Okay, so this is kind of a basic information. And now since I did some setup in terms of queries, let me show you the queries here. Okay, so if I show you all queries, so these are the shared queries. So if I show you this particular query, like let's say we want to find out like how many stories are there where we haven't estimated or we haven't mentioned the story point. So this is a query. If I open it in a separate tab, so you guys can see if I click on the editor. So basically what I'm saying is for the user story as a work item type where the state is not closed and story points are blank. So I just want this particular information so that I can, convey in my dashboard. So this is kind of a very basic query, right? So what exactly we can do is like if I open the dashboard in a separate tab, so what I can do is I can add a different widget which is called query results, sorry, query tiles here. And not the query results, because query results will show the complete results of the query. We want to use the number, the count. So I'm going to use the query tile. If I click on add and then I say done editing. Okay, so now we have to do the configuration. If I click on configure, so I'm going to select one of the shared query which says like user story with no story points. Okay, and I will keep the title the same, though we can edit the title. Now, what exactly we want is like the whole idea of conveying this information in Teams dashboard is like, once in a while, if team comes and they look at their dashboard, they will get to know that, okay, there are some work items, there are some set of user story for which, they haven't put the estimation in story points. So they can utilize this particular information. So what exactly I will do is I will make it default as an amber. I will add a rule and I would say make it green if number of work items is 0. And I will explain like, what we are doing. So basically what we are saying is if our query which returns the number of user stories with no story points, right? So by default, it will come as an amber. But if the query is returning no work items with the, let's say in our project there are all the user stories have been estimated in the story points, so we are saying make it a green, right? So if I save, so you guys can see that right now it is an amber because we have 7 work items where the user stories uh, do not have a story points. And the good thing about this information is if I click on this particular number, it will lead me to those user story where we do not have the user story points. So we can simply check here. What we have to do is in that, since that column is not available, we can go to the column option. And here, let's say we do not want the text, but instead of text, I can say story points, right? And yeah, so here you can see that story points column is blank. So let's go back. Uh, so let me again open the dashboard. Okay, so these are the 4 set of information that we have kind of like covered so far. We have the this information, the sprint information, the definition of done, and the story points scale. Also, we have kind of like mention like how many user stories are there in our backlog where we haven't put the estimation. And we have also made a condition that if there are no such item, it will kind of like list it as a green. That means everything is good. Otherwise, if it is amber, that means we have to kind of like as a team need to go and see those work items. Now again, what we will do is if I go back to the queries, let's say we also want like how many user stories are there for which there is no acceptance criteria being mentioned by the team. Okay, so again, the same set of very basic query. We want like work item as a user story. The state has not been closed, and we say acceptance criteria is empty. So right now this is conveying this sort of information. Now, if I go back to the dashboard and if we have to utilize this again, what we have to do is we have to use the query tile. And if I click on add and if I click on done editing, now what we have to do is we have to click on configure, and we have saved all our queries as shared query. It's very important because the queries which we are designing, which we are writing, we have to save them as part of the shared query so that we can use those queries when we are using any of the widget in our dashboard. So this is our query, and we will keep the title the same, user stories with no acceptance criteria. Again, we will say like first, by default it is amber, and we will make it as a green if the count is 0. Okay, so now what we have done is we have added two query tiles in our dashboard. One conveys like how many user stories are there with where we do not have a story points. Second says how many user stories are there where we do not have a acceptance criteria. On a similar note, we have one more query which says user stories with no description. So this is our description, right? I mean, if we have left description as blank, then how many user stories are there? So if I show you again, it's a very basic one. We have a work item type as a user story. We are saying the state has not been closed, and also we say description is empty. So again, what we can do is we can go to the edit. We can say give me the query tile, and I say done editing, and then simply if I click on configure, I select that particular query from the shared queries where it says like stories with no description, and by default I make it amber, and I will say make it green if it is 0. Okay, so these are the three basic information that we have added: user stories with no story points, user stories with no acceptance criteria, and user stories with no description. Right, so right now it is showing 7. If I click on this particular information, so these are the 7 user stories where we haven't added a description. So let's say for user login I have just mentioning like something like test, and I have saved it as let's say I have also mentioned for the forgot password. Now if I go back to my dashboard, so right, it will show like 5, right? Since for the 2 we have already filled up the description. And let's say where exactly we were here. Let's try to add the description for all of them, for this one as well. I'm just saving it, and let's see what it does in our dashboard. Okay, so we have filled for all the user stories the description column, just we have kept one of them as empty, you guys can see. And if I come to the dashboard, it should show as 1, so I have refreshed it. Right now, if I, let's say, again go back and try to give it for this last one as well as a test, so if I refresh it, okay, so now since there are no user stories in our team's backlog where we do not have a description column as empty, so it has made it as a green. And that's the idea about using the condition. Like so this is also a very important way of conveying the simple information. Like we can show them in our amber or show them in a red, like whatever color the team prefers. But I mean, what it indicates is like, whenever, if I am the scrum master, or if I am one of the team member, I am just looking at our team's dashboard. If there is something which is in amber, that's kind of an indication that yes, I mean, there are some things where some rules are not getting fulfilled. There is a deviation from the agile basic rules, and then we can come and we can decide like, yeah, okay, we have to fix those, right? uh, Again, I mean, if I show you one more, query that I have added. So if I click on the queries and if I show you product backlog report, so this is a another set of query where we are saying that we just want to kind of understand like what are the different types of work items available in our backlog and where state is not closed or removed. That means kind of a to do items for the team. So very basic information, and again it's a shared query, and if I uh, run this query, I'm getting this result, and this has been saved. If I go to the chart, so what I have done is I have created a kind of a pie chart. If I show you, so this is a pie chart where we have, the query name and it's grouped by work item type, and I'm showing count of work items. So what I have done is I have simply added it to the dashboard. What we can do is we can say, okay, this is our Azure channel dashboard, right? So what exactly we are doing is we are saying, okay, send this chart information to the Teams dashboard, and we have selected the Teams dashboard here. So if I click on OK, so if I refresh the dashboard, so you guys can see that this information has been displayed in our Teams dashboard. So if I just enlarge it, so basically it is showing like we have 44 in total as work items which are open, which are not closed and removed. And it shows like we have 17 features, we have one bug, we have seven epics, seven user stories, and also we have 12 tasks. Okay, so I'm not saying like, I mean, this is kind of a very, very basic information. Let's say this information might be important for the product owner and his team, just kind of like they want to understand like how many epic or features are there, how many user stories are there. And the whole idea of showing this kind of information is, again, you can design your own queries. If I can show you guys this particular information, right? I mean, you can design your own queries, save them as a shared query, and then come to the charts, and we can configure this chart and we can add it to the dashboard by selecting the name of the dashboard, right? There was one more query which I wanted to cover in today's topic, and if I can show you, like, if there are any orphan items, like if there are work items with no parents. So basically, what I have done is this is a query for that. I mean, let's say we want to identify, do we have any user stories which are not following our hierarchy, which are not under feature, or do we have any bug which is kind of like a standalone, it's not following the hierarchy, not following under any epic, it doesn't have a parent. So basically, we want to find out like how many user stories, bug, or tasks we have where we do not have a parent for each one of these, right? So again, what exactly we will do is we can go back here and we can add a query tile, and let's click on done editing. If I click on configure, I can again select the shared query. So I'm saying work items with no parents. Again, we'll keep it simple. We'll make it amber, and we will say make it green if it is 0. So let's save it. Okay. So what information it is conveying is like we have 4 work items in our project, which is set up where we do not have a parents for these items. So we can simply see, if I click on this particular user story, team access to Azure, so it does not have any link, any parent link. I can again go back to the query. I can show you this particular information, user management. It just also does not have any link. Similarly, this particular task, it also does not have a link. And this bug is also without having any links. So this also could be very handy in terms of, sometimes in a hurry, or, we do not have time, we didn't thought, and we simply place a user story, or we simply created a task and we started working on it. But I mean, if we place this kind of information in our dashboard, let's me go back to the dashboard. Okay, this is our channel's dashboard. So, I mean, if we are conveying this set of information in our dashboard, so it becomes very handy for the Scrum Master and also from an Agile management perspective. For the team's perspectives, they can look at these numbers like why it is showing this particular box in amber. That means, there are some rules which are getting deviated, which as a team we have to fix. So right now it is telling me there are 4 items where we do not have defined the parent. We call it like orphan items in our project. It could be user story, it could be tasks. And important thing to look at is the way I have mentioned the query here. So what I have done is I have used work items and direct links, and all I'm saying is I want to find out the user story bug and tasks which are not closed, and where only return items that do not have matching links, and I have selected parents. So I'm saying, okay, for user story bug and tasks where we do not have parents, give me that set of information, and it is giving me this particular information, right? So this was kind of a very first video, a detailed one on the basic information that we can cover in our Azure dashboard. I mean, obviously, Velocity will be part of it, and I already have a video on the Velocity how we can add in our Azure dashboard. The reason I haven't covered in today's video because it is going to take some time to set up some data. Also, the sprint burndown, I will try to cover it in upcoming videos. But I mean, this kind of information, like we added the sprint information, the definition of done, the story points scale, some basic set of queries that we can utilize and show the numbers. Also, we can change the colors based on the conditioning based on the rules. And if there are some queries which are resulting some information, like I mean, we can have the chart and the different tabular formats and bring those results into our dashboard. So I hope you guys liked today's video, and I mean, if you are new to this channel, please share and subscribe because that's will definitely motivate me and will kind of like help me to share more videos on my channel. And thank you very much, and please do share your comments as well. Thank you for watching.